welcome. I'm currently working on a .NET MAUI project that requires scanning of QR codes, and and just for a quick example for anyone that doesn't know, if you've been living under a rock, basically QR codes are these, and they're just square stuff you see at bus stops, and also by extension barcodes as well. So these are the ones you see like in produce and items when you go shopping. So I need to build a .NET application that is able to scan QR codes, and depending on what we need to do, be able to get the value from the QR code. So one of the libraries I've found is the Zing.net. I'll just pull it up here. So it's currently in preview at the moment, and this is the GitHub library, and it comes as a NuGet package in .NET MAUI, and the documentation is quite good. So I'm pretty straightforward, and it's one of those things that should take you like less than 5-10 minutes if you know what you're doing to get done. It took me a while because some parts of the documentation wasn't correct, and also I had to play around with it to figure it out. So I'm hoping with this walkthrough it saves you time. So let's just jump right in. So one of the first things you need to do is okay, so basically this is my .NET MAUI application. So it's pretty straightforward, the app that you get when you create a new .NET MAUI app. So to start off with, first things first is you need to install the Zing MAUI NuGet package, and that's pretty straightforward. Anyone that's familiar with Visual Studio and .NET is you go in there and you search for the MAUI, and I found that in the documentation it says download this, but apparently it's the control one that you need. So it's almost as if the control one is a superset, contains the MAUI and also the controls, and which I'll show you in a bit. So after I download that, as you can see, I've downloaded that here. Please note you have to click include preview, or else you wouldn't see it. So it's in preview at the moment, and hopefully it will move on from preview. But for what I need, it solves the problem that I'm trying to solve. So after installing the NuGet package, the first you need to do is go to the MAUI program.cs, and if you're unfamiliar with this, but you're familiar with MVC applications like web APIs, if you know the program.cs or the startup class, and now with the minimal APIs, how everything is in a program.cs. So this will look familiar to you. So all the dependencies that you need in your application, you can wire up here, which I find really, really cool. So in order to use the barcode reader, is you just include the user statement of the NuGet package you just installed, and you just add this line, use barcode reader, and basically you've wired up all the configurations required to get the barcode scanner up, which I think is very cool. In .NET Forms is you would need to do various stuff, but with this is nice and clean. Another because I have an Android device, one of the things to consider is granting permissions, and from scanning QR codes you need access to the camera. So you need to go and for other devices you need to set permissions as well. But as I'm working with an Android device, you would need to go to the platform Android and the manifest file, the Android manifest file, and say use permissions camera, and that's pretty. If you developed for Android before, that's pretty straightforward. So any permissions you need to state them in the manifest file beforehand. So after doing that, the next step is to kind of figure out how you want your your scanner to work. So because it's a control, it needs to stay on the page. So in this example, I'm creating a scan page, which I navigate to do my scanning and navigate back out from. So this is my scan page. It's pretty straightforward. If you know how to import namespaces in XAML, you just it's pretty straightforward, and it's also in the documentation. Is the XML namespace NS, and you give it a prefix name. This name is what you use when you want to call it within the XAML, and you just need to reference the control. So it's .NET MAUI control. Once you start typing, it auto completes for you anyways. So to wire up the camera view, you just, once you type in the first name here, you get the autocomplete for there are a few other controls in there, but you see the camera reader view, and that's the full-fledged camera reader. It wires up, connecting to the camera, wires up, going backwards. It can even do flashlights, but at this point, I'm not doing the flashlight demo. I give it a name. The reason why I give it a name is to be able to refer to it from the code behind. And the event, when the camera scans a barcode successfully, it triggers an event, and this is how you hook up to the event. So it's the barcode detected event. So if we go to the code behind, just F12 into that, you can see that. So I'll explain what I've done. So one of the things I've noticed from the camera scanner is if you're scanning a QR code, for instance, if you keep the camera there for too long, it will scan multiple times. So a way to kind of fix that is as soon as I get an event, I deactivate the scanning functionality. The camera is still on, but I deactivate the scanning functionality, and then I check if there's any results. I take the first results, and then with this, I think I need a wait here. And then with that, I can get the result out by saying result.value. The way to send the result back to the calling page is you go, you do the shell.current.goto and the 2 dots. That means it closes the current page and goes back to where it came from. And with the navigation parameters, it's just a dictionary with a string and an object where you give it a name, and then you pass in the QR code value to it, so it gets sent back to the calling code. In the application, I'll have a main page, and then from the main page, I'll click a button for scan, and then it will go off, open this scan page. I would scan, and then it will take me back to the main page. So that's the flow to kind of expect. So the other thing I wanted to touch on was, if you remember, I gave the camera barcode a name. So it's called the barcode reader. And basically with that, I am able to access it. So in the constructor, I give it an option to format. So depending on what you're scanning, so it could be barcode, it could be whatever, you can set the format here, and this helps prepare the camera to be able to scan it. So for this example, I will go barcode first. I'll go QR code first. I think I've been mixing the two up. I'll go QR code first. And with that, I should be able to scan the QR code example I have there. So to wire up the main page, I'll just show you that quickly, is we have the main page, which is the standard .NET MAUI. One of the things I did was I added a title and a button on top of the title. So it's like one of those add buttons you can see on the title, but I called it scan, and with a click event. And what the click event does is it takes me to the scan page. So that's a newly created page that I have. Another thing to kind of touch on here is when you're doing routing and stuff, you need to specify your route in the app shell. So So it's pretty straightforward. It's in the documentation of .NET MAUI. I can put a link in the description as well to help point you in the right direction. So basically, I'm just saying, whenever someone is navigating and they put in the name of scan page, it should go to scan page. That's pretty straightforward. That's one of the reasons why I like .NET MAUI. It's very intuitive and it streamlines and reduces the workload in doing standard tasks like navigation, for instance. So with that said, I think I might have explained everything. So the main page goes to the scan page. The scan page waits for results. The scan page on startup configures the camera, the barcode camera, to QR code. So it's ready to receive QR code scans, and it will disable when it gets a result, process the results, and send it back to the calling page, which is the main page. So I will build this and run this on my device and connect my device to my computer so you can see. Right, so I have my phone connected using a Samsung Flow, I think, and I will, to connect the Visual Studio application, is just go to Android. Instead of emulator, you use the local device. So yeah, pretty straightforward from there. And I will run without debug. Hopefully something should pop up. It's building, probably speed it up. Post editing. Right, splash screen, yeah, and so this is the title bar that I built. So if you remember, this is in the main page XAML, and I created the stack layout with the label and text. I think I'll just change the color to white. Sorry, that's color white. And that will be a lot more visible. I'll just relaunch that. Actually, we're using hot reload. So yeah. So that's the title view that I drew, and the scan button is here. So ideally, when I click the scan button, I should go to the scan page. The barcode. Oh. Right, and you get the results here. Say hello world. If there's a way to kind of do that in a more flowy fashion. Right, so we try that again. So we click scan and go to and scan results. So right, do a text and welcome home. Generate QR code, and if we scan that again, click scan, and it should say welcome home. That's perfect. So I didn't talk about how the results get displayed, so I'll just quickly talk about that in the code. So what happens is when the scan results kicks it back to the main page is using a query property with the name of the parameter that was sent, and it's going to a public property here. So what happens is I just put it as a setter, and as the result comes, we are updating the counter text. If you recall, before, the counter text was just using to show how many times the button has been clicked. So I'm just tapping into that to show the results. Pretty straightforward. The other thing I wanted to try, I'm not sure if it's going to work, but is switching from a QR code to a barcode. Opened, and there's a barcode here, and there are various types of barcodes. So I picked the code -128. The format as code.128. So keeping that in mind, go back to the code and change my format type to, if I try and find 128. code 1 to it. So this tells the camera to expect a code 1 to it results. So if I run this again, pop this up and pop the barcode up as well. So hopefully, if I click scan and so one thing I noticed about this is I had to twist the camera sideways. Oh, it's not working. Maybe if I make it bigger. Let's try that again. Yeah, so I noticed that it's either there's something wrong with the code, but I'm not using Barcode at the moment, but it's either there's something wrong with the library where the orientation is off for barcode scanners, because I've never been able to get it to work in its current orientation, like in a kind of portrait mode. But if I twist it to a landscape, it works. So yeah, so that's one thing to kind of take note of. But as you can see, it's pretty straightforward to switch between the two. I think it'd be interesting to find out how to, if there's an auto. I don't know what the default is, but let's see what's in here. Yeah, just curious to find out what the default is. Yeah, I can't search, but it's curious to find out what the default is, but or if there's a way for it to auto detect what kind of. But anyway, for my end, it kind of works. These are all the options that you have within the scanning library. So hopefully it should cover all, if not most of your needs. But for me, I'm using the QR code scanner and it works perfectly and quickly as well. So I'm quite happy with that. Yeah, so that's it for this video. Hopefully I'll keep making some more videos and improving the format and quality and everything. But yeah, thanks for joining me on this, and don't forget, you're only as good as your last problem.